Warriors head coach Vay Diep joins to talk winning it all a season ago. Rush play-by-play man Cody Janzen pops in to talk about the RMLL Junior B landscape in 2024, and we'll take a deeper dive into the Rebels paying a visit to Regina to take on the Kings in a 3-game set over the long weekend. All that and more on the Junior Bees pod on Crowlax TV.
That's Klucha, and he goes short side low.
The Rebels are right back in it. All alone, he's stopped by Luke West. And Kerr,
what?
7 seconds is all it took for Kerr.
Quick shot scores. Jacob Boudreau
Takes his shot and buries that.
Now joined here by head coach of the Warriors, Vay Diep, Founders Cup champion coming off a national title in Port Coquitlam, BC a season ago. Vay, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, Bo, thanks for having me there.
All right, so I just want to touch base with you here and get some insight on your experience last year at the Founders. So I want to start off by asking you, when you initially arrived and, seeing some of the other teams and things like that, were you instantly sort of thinking that you had a real shot and that you maybe were one of the favorites, or did you kind of enter the tournament with a little bit more trepidation and it wasn't more of a feeling out process for you?
We're very fortunate that myself and my coaching staff of Dean Casey, Graydon Cornfield, Owen Williams, having the being able to attend so many national championships and being very fortunate enough to win 3 of them prior to coming on board with the Warriors. Once you're at the dance, all you need is a chance, and that was the message we gave to the boys once we got there. We had a bit of a rough start against Oil City Kings on day 1. Probably a little bit of jitters out there for the boys, but as day 1 progressed and we had opportunities to scout the other teams, mind you, only 1 game, and just going off that, we did truly felt that we were the top 4 teams there, and we really had a chance. It's just that we had to stay focused and then make sure that all our players understood what their roles were, what our systems were, the plays that we were going to be implementing throughout the game, because adjustments have to be made, not just prior or after, but also during mid-game. So, as the week progressed, we surely felt that we had a legitimate shot at least being in that 1-2 game and have a chance to play for a national championship there.
I like that. A chance at the dance. You should trademark that, Vaya. That's a pretty good one. And I liked what you said, too, about, being one of 4, because oftentimes at those tournaments, at those national title tournaments, it's usually 3 or 4 teams that you could kind of bookmark and say, look, these are the teams that are going to have a real shot at it. So I think that's a very reasonable assessment of where you guys stood last year. All right, so early on in the tournament, or it could be at any time, were there any distractions or unexpected hurdles that you sort of had to overcome?
No, not really. If there was any, that we kept it within the management group and the coaching staff. We just wanted, if there were any distractions that we felt that may trickle down to the players or within the dressing room, we want to do a really good job of that, of making sure it doesn't get to that point. Our main focus was just to keep the boys focused at the task at hand while we were there. Distractions, there wasn't really any major distraction. There were a couple teams, maybe us included as well, regarding some rosters that were submitted to the CLA, but that, it happens every year. It's just small issues. So we made sure that we dealt with it as a coaching staff and as a management group, and and just make sure the players would just focus at what their jobs were throughout the whole week and what their responsibilities were, and staying healthy and being ready for each game ahead of us.
Right on. So yeah, I think that's a good approach. Making sure that you take as much pressure off the players as possible, and sort of absorbing some of that and dealing with what you needed to deal with behind the scenes. Okay, so now I want to ask you about if you had any sort of pre-scout information on any of the teams that were there, and if there was any sort of real animosity that you picked up on between any. It could be any pair of the teams. It didn't have to involve you and another team. If you sort of picked up on any real hatred between a couple of the teams there.
It's tough. It's a short week. Well, not short because you're there for 7 days, but pre-scouting was really limited, just based on you got to really scour the internet, YouTube. You got to be really defined in your searches to try to find these any videos that are out there. So the only thing we can really concentrate on was making sure that our boys were ready for what we wanted to do, especially on our defense. Our defense is structured to where we want to manipulate the opposing offense as much as possible to our strongest strengths, and then that in turn results into a good transition game for us. And then on the offensive side, we stress so much because of recognizing the offensive talents we have up front. And we put a lot of time into our power play, and as you watch throughout the week there on BC Sports TV, I'm pretty sure our power play percentage was really effective, and that was a key factor in winning a majority of our games, and especially at the gold medal game there. The only scouting we had available to us was games within the week. We would go back to the hotel as a coaching staff, quickly break down any film that we watched, went over the notes we took while we're at the rink watching games before us and after us. So we really had to essentially be on 24 hours, 7 days throughout the week, just to stay on top of the scouting and breaking down all that information, and then taking that information and then relaying it to our players to a point where they can understand it easily, so they can take that on the floor and then execute. There's that fine line of giving your players too much information, and then you just essentially overload them with too much information, and they don't respond the way we expect them to do. So I got to put a lot of credit to our coaching staff of Dean, Owen, and Graydon of doing all that film work we did at the rink and back at the dorms that we were staying at.
Yeah, I think that having those games streamed live on YouTube obviously would have been a big help, because that way, it's tough to be in the rink all the time. It's a little bit draining, and so I would imagine that was an aid to you guys as well, being able to turn on a game and watch it and sort of get familiar with a team that you might not have seen before. So in saying that, who did you find to be the most difficult matchup stylistically for you along the way? And for anyone that's unaware with the Founders format in its current state anyway, it's a full round robin. You have 6 or 7 teams, and you're playing everybody, and the top 2 advance to gold, and 3rd and 4th out of the round robin play for bronze. So with that, Vay, was there anybody that you found to be more of a challenge for you and the way you guys play?
Yeah, as the week progressed, there and I'll tell anybody that would listen to me, there were 4 teams there that that could have been in that 1-2 game and could have been a national champion. As the week progressed, Ontario being a big one, always a big favorite. Akwesasne upsetting Six Nations there. So they were a big test. And as the week went on, even though they started 0-3, we knew that they will, Ontario will be Ontario by the time that the seedings were going to be set. And lo and behold, they were there. So they were going to be a big opponent. Onondaga Redhawks, young, fast, talented team. Lost a heartbreaker to them. It was a goaltender battle there. It was one team we didn't want to face either. Polko, the host team, heavily loaded, talented. Even though in the round robin game we've beat them by 2 goals, but we were down in the first. So there were a lot of opponents that we didn't want to see in that 1-2 game. And even in Victoria, they had a bad little speed bump there in the middle of their week. They could have, and they played us hard there in our last round robin game, taking us to essentially a 1-goal game there. So yeah, this Founders was 4 teams could have easily won that. So again, I can't stress it enough. We were just focused on making sure our guys understood what their roles and responsibilities were, and to put them in a position where they can execute when they had to there.
Certainly was one of the tighter Founders in recent memory. You didn't really have, other than maybe Queen City, who was making their first appearance. They could score. They just had trouble keeping the ball out of their net and everything like that. And, obviously when you're making your first Founders appearance, it's going to be a lot tougher on you. But really, other than that, it was pretty tight. It was pretty close, and it made for exciting lacrosse throughout the week. So you go and beat the Akwesasne Thunder 9-7 for the national title. And like you were saying earlier, your power play was a massive difference. I think it was the difference in that game in particular. Just describe, simple question here, just describe what that feeling is that's running through you when that buzzer sounds.
Relieved, because it was such a long week. Really excited and happy for the boys that made sacrifices that we asked them to make throughout the year, especially for the guys that were second years with us when me and Owen first came on 3 years ago, sorry. Full of enjoyment, especially for Tony Materi, who put in so much work for the past 20 years with this program. Been to numerous Founders himself as well. When I first started with him, and after, and then now, to finally see him get a national championship ring and put that Edmonton Warriors name on that trophy. It's a feeling I can't describe, but it's a very joyful moment and a very proud moment for the kids that put all the hard work and the sacrifices they made so that they can become a national champion.
I think that's well put, and it was almost surreal for me. I remember watching the game, thinking to myself, there's 5-6 kids I was just coaching in U17, 2 summers ago, and I'm watching them right now win a Founders. It is pretty incredible, and I was really happy to see you guys be able to pull it off. And obviously, you mentioned Tony as well. That's, if you want to talk about dedication to the sport, there's no really no better example than Tony Materi, and that guy lives and breathes Warriors lacrosse. And for him to be present for that and to be able to be a part of that, I think was also very meaningful. And I know I saw you at the Minto after and congratulated you, but I'll say it again. Unbelievable effort and feat to accomplish. And no, I think you guys deserved it. So
Just to add to that as well, with Tony's leadership there behind the scenes, it made the coaching staff's job so much easier, and the most forgotten group and biggest supporters for our success is our parent group, and I can't thank them enough. And my coaching staff will go along with me as well. The stuff they do behind the scenes, making sure our kids are taken care of nutrition-wise during games throughout the regular season, on road trips, especially the week at Founders. We had a group of parents there that put in countless hours of making sure that breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks were provided to the kids throughout the whole week. Parents that were driving us back and forth to the rink. So, I can't say enough about the leadership group and the parent group that was behind us, that played a huge part in our success in these prior years, and including that national championship that we were very, very fortunate to be a part of.
I think that's a great point too, and I know a lot of those parents, and they made so many sacrifices for their kids, as many parents do in sports, and lacrosse is a tight-knit community. And just to name a few, I know like Chuck Royer and Chris Simonson and Randy Dewart. He's always got his camera there if you ever need film, and there's so many people that I know that would have been a part of that, and I think you made a great point bringing and mentioning those people. So now I want to talk about your coaching staff for a second, and it's made up of guys that you yourself coached with the senior minors, and you went on a run of 3 straight President's Cups from 2016 to 2018. So I just want to ask you what it was like winning the Founders alongside those guys, and how would you sort of compare winning a Founders to a President's? Because I know the feeling of winning is very unique, and especially like at an amateur level, winning a national title is something that you'll never forget. But I know there's small sort of nuances and differences into winning, a junior championship and a senior one. So I wanted to ask you what it was like for you winning with those guys, and if there were any differences for you winning a Founders as opposed to a President's.
Yeah, that's a great question, but I would do each winning national championship injustice if I describe, to pick one apart. Tell you what, of the 4 that I've been very fortunate to be part of, they were all very special. 2016, we're the hosts. Great team there. 2017, we go to 6 Nations. We grind it out. We win that one. 2018, we go to Nanaimo, and we grind that one out as well. Win that one. Yeah, it's different because I coach Graydon, Dean, and Owen in all 3 of those, and their perspective as players would be different than me as a coach. Very proud moment to be to play a small part in their quest of being a national championship. But I'll say this: as a coaching staff for a junior B national team, us experiencing winning a national championship, we wanted to give the kids try to get them that experience, relay what our experiences was, try to implement what we've learned throughout those that three-peat area, what mistakes were made prior to that, what mistakes were made after, what mistakes were made during, to ensure that the that the kids wouldn't fall into those kind of traps. But once we won that as a coaching staff, we were all very, very happy and pleased, proud of the boys, because now they get to experience what we were able to experience when we won a national championship. So it was a really proud moment to be able to share that with those kids.
Yeah, and I think that having those guys alongside yourself, I think would have been invaluable, because obviously they understand what a long week of lacrosse is and how grueling it can be, and just being able to offer some of that experience and some of that advice that they would have been able to to keep guys emotionally and psychologically with it, I think is huge. I'll never forget, I mean, I saw this picture pretty quickly after you guys won in the dressing room. Graydon's got his shirt off, and you guys are all, you might have even had one of your shirt off too, and I was thinking to myself, man, like these guys are, it's a special moment when that's taken place, because I know Graydon my whole life, and he's not exactly the first guy to be doing that, so I could tell that was it was getting pretty rowdy in your guys' dressing room after, as it deserved to be. But when I saw that, I was like, yeah, no, they're soaking it in.
That me and Graydon tarps off is two factors there. One was experience, and the second one was just paying homage to the boys. As you would remember, prior to nationals, they would always warm up without their shooters on. So that's what that picture kind of speaks about.
Yeah, no, I like that. No, and that I think also winning somewhere away from home, I think kind of a lot of the time it feels a little bit more underdogish, if that makes sense. Like, you're in hostile territory. The other most of the fans in the building are not in your favor, and I think sometimes, I know you would probably attest to this, winning on the road and winning once at home, it's a little bit of a different feeling, right? Winning on the road and being with the guys all the time. So I think maybe that made it a little bit more special for you guys as well. So I want to transition. Then this is my last question for you, Vay, before I let you go. As we move into 2024, give me some of your quarter pole thoughts as we hit the 25% mark of the regular season, on where your team sort of currently is and what your main focus is moving forward.
Even though we're the quarter way through our season, to us as a coaching staff, we're still a little early in our season here, so we're just taking it 1 week at a time, one game at a time. The defensive structure and the system we have in place, it takes a while to learn, even for our second years that have been with us as well, and even guys that have been with us for 3 years coming up here. There's little nuances that they still need to learn and pick up. Some rookies coming into our system, we got to slowly be patient with them as well. So, we just take it one game at a time, and then we make adjustments as we go forward. As long as our goal is, as long as we're clicking and firing on all cylinders. I know these are all cliche sayings that us coaches always use, but we got to be ready to go. We as a staff have not done our job if this team that we have is not ready to compete by the last month of the season going into playoffs. And our goal and mandate, as always, when I came back on board with Tony, was just to get to a national championship. Once you get there, anything can happen. So that's what we're focused on, is making sure that these guys are ready and have the tools in place to compete at division playoffs. Then hopefully we can get out of division, get to provincials. Hopefully we can get out of provincials, and then once you get to Hamilton, anything can happen. So that's our goal right now and focus.
Absolutely. A chance at the dance once again in 2024. I want to thank you for joining us here today on the pod. And best of luck this weekend. I know you guys have a couple of home games, and hopefully you're able to get back on track.
Oh yeah. I just want to say one more thing here. When I did a podcast with Janner? I must say, us being a national champion is a result and the byproduct of how good this Junior B Tier 1 league is. I can't say enough of what the other organizations, their coaches, staff do, their parent groups do. As you can see within the first quarter of the week, first quarter of the season here, games are competitive. So I can't say enough how competitive this league is. Again, if we keep this pace up, this league will always be competing at a national champion, and the results speak for themselves. You can look at the past 3-4 seasons, excluding the COVID years, Shamrocks, Founders Cup, and us now within the last 3 full playing seasons. So I can't say enough about how good this league is, and for the other teams and organizations out there, your time is coming. Just not when me and my coaching staff are still coaching in this division. If we have anything to say about it.
No, spoken like a true champion, Vay. No, I agree with you. I think the way that the league is expanding too is impressive, and you're seeing a lot more centers come and get involved, and not only within Alberta but with outside. And you have Queen City now, and you've had Winnipeg for quite a while, and you've had Saskatoon for quite a while. Now I'm hearing maybe Prince Albert's joining the fray next year. So it's becoming almost like a prairie league at this point. And no, it's good. It's improving, and you're right. I think that if it keeps on this path, it's going to be a force to be reckoned with. Throughout at least the next decade or so. All right, Vay. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll do this again sometime soon.
Absolutely, anytime. Hey, thanks again, you and the Crolax TV crew, for putting all your time and work into providing free games for all the masses to watch, and unfortunately scout my team and pick us apart. So thanks.
No problem. No problem. I appreciate guys like yourself and people that are directly involved with the league stepping in and just providing people with a little bit of insight on what's going on, maybe some of the things that people never hear about, or maybe have questions about. And so I appreciate your time, Vay, and thank you so much for stopping by.
Yeah, anytime. Till next time there, Mo.
That was Vay Diep on the Junior Beast podcast, coming in and talking with us a little bit about their founders' experience. And again, thank you so much, Vay, for your time. Now I want to welcome in play-by-play man for the Saskatchewan Rush, Alberta lacrosse voice and advocate, media guru, Cody Janzen. Thanks so much for joining me on the pod, Janner.
Man, happy to be back and talk some Junior Beast.
And I know there's no better place for you right now as the season's heating up and we're hitting the quarter pole. But first, I want to ask you, Cody, how you been and what you've been up to lately.
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's been a change. I know a lot of people in the Alberta lacrosse world maybe don't follow me as closely, or maybe just followed for a couple of things I was doing. But yeah, me and the wife moved to Saskatchewan and Saskatoon here, so I was full time with the Rush, or I still am full time with the Rush. and was calling those games and doing a little bit more with the team. So we're still here. It's been awesome. It's been a good change of pace. Unfortunately, the season, ends a little earlier than you'd like, but at the end of the day, it's been awesome. And then this summer, I'm really looking forward to being a fan. It's been a ton of fun watching, games on Crowlax TV and stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to a bit of a change of pace this summer and really enjoying the time off.
That's awesome. Have you been out to the Gordie Howe at all to see those SWAT games? I know they just played a few against the Junior A Mounties this past weekend.
So I've watched 2 local games so far. I got to see the Crude and SWAT, the Tier 1 game a couple of weeks ago now. So that was awesome to see some of the Crude guys there. And honestly, again, it was a really good game. There's a lot of talent out there. And then I got to go check out a Junior B game in Prince Albert between the Predators and the Swift Current Wolverines, the 2 top teams in the PGLL. And again, there's some legit players in those leagues too. It's kind of funny that, Alberta's obviously, let's call it, it's the 3rd dog in Canadian lacrosse, right? Only behind BC and Ontario. And Saskatchewan's, they're slowly but surely catching up to Alberta, right? They're building from the grassroots, which is something they need to do. And I still think they can do a better job of. But they're actually building something decent. You're starting to see a lot of better players come out of it. So watching, I call it the true Junior B, not just the Tier 1, but there's some actual legit players coming out of it.
That's awesome that you're sort of hopping around and getting to see lacrosse in different centers around Saskatchewan. And no, I think that it's great that you're out there, and the lacrosse community needs more quality people, and I think Saskatchewan will only benefit from your presence out there. So that's great to hear. So before we jump into the Junior B circuit here in Alberta, I want to ask you, and I know you're all about bold predictions, so the Saskatchewan Rush, will they make the playoffs next season? And if so, why? I think I know where you're going to go here, but let's hear it. Let's let everybody hear it.
Yeah, I think so. And again, you can call it bias, call it whatever, but just the way that the team gelled, I think you could see through the first 5 games, they were 1-4, and the chemistry struggled, right? So all of a sudden, water finds its level, the team starts to gel, and you could see late the guys were really comfortable with each other, and they were playing all the best teams in the league. Listen, they took Buffalo and Albany, the 2 top teams in the NLL, to overtime this year. Right? They beat San Diego by 5. They, lost to Toronto by 1, which was a goal that scored with 5 minutes left to go in the game, right? So they're playing with the top dogs. They're a young team. I think they're one of the, 3rd youngest by age on the roster. So another year of chemistry and playing together, bringing back, this whole group. Yeah, I think they should make the playoffs. And if they don't, that's a huge disappointment.
Yeah, no, I noticed, I definitely, watching from afar, I noticed that they seem to be in almost every game, and they were often a good team to bank on at home. I think they're starting to get a little bit more of their home floor advantage back, and I think you're right. I think they are a younger team that's on the rise, and there's no better. I mean, today's NLL is so parity based. It doesn't take much to go from. I mean, look at what Albany just did, right? I mean, so it doesn't take a whole lot to go from the basement to the penthouse, and so we'll see if 2024-25 treats the Saskatchewan Rush a little bit better. All right, so let's flip to the Junior B circuit here in Alberta and the RMLL, and let's talk Road to the Founders. What are your 3 biggest early season takeaways as we hit the quarter pole, just from what you've seen on Crowlax and what you know of the rosters? What would you give us as your 3 main takeaways so far?
Biggest takeaway number 1. The Central Division is by far and away the strongest in the league. It doesn't, there's no competition with this anymore, Mo. The Central's the best. I know Rocky View's hosting Larry Bishop. They've got an absolute wagon, but Mountain View surprised people. The Mavericks are no joke. And then there's Red Deer. Red Deer's a team built for the playoffs. I don't look at their start and really worry that much because this is a team that if they get in the playoffs, no one wants to face them, right? So that's just a very straightforward. The Central's been unreal. I guess if I had to pick a number 2, I don't know how many, like Josh Pilsner's probably played like 9 years of juniors, what it feels like. How are the Shamrocks still this good? They're always so good. It's ridiculous. And the crazy thing, like they've got all that talent. You've got Fletcher, Che, like Klissinger's only played 2 games. He's got like 15 points in those 2. The Shamrocks are just always so good. It's unbelievable to me. So that's the second biggest takeaway. They might just be good forever. And then number 3, I think, we talked about Regina being legit, and Winnipeg pushed the Warriors to the brink last year at the Larry Bishop. I think the Kings got a little bit of a wake-up call last year at Founders, and I think that's a team that's pretty motivated to do something. I don't know if they got to – this is going to already start some drama. I don't know if they got to go and acquire a goaltender or something or up that position because I watched the games against the Rebels, and I think that that's their weak point. But I think that if they can lock it down defensively, they got some gamers out there. I think Regina could be a team that, ends up in a semifinal or final position come provincials.
I think those are all great points. I mean, I know Keenan and I have beaten to death the idea that the Central is the toughest division in the RMLL right now, and I don't think it's, like you said, I don't think it's arguable. The Shamrocks, like you said, they are, for the last decade, really, they're always there. And I know Sean Tyrell, coaching the Junior B Mountaineers, will tell you that was them when he was playing for the Junior B Mountaineers, right? Decade. They won a Founders. They were going every year. So it's amazing how things sort of cycle through like that, and they last that long. Like, we're talking like 10, 12 years. And lastly, what you were talking about.
I'm cutting you out. I'm cutting you out. Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
When the hell does Jason Crook get an NLL job? Like, that's got to be in line, no? Am I crazy for saying this? Like, I know that there is a difference, and I know that Junior A's got some really good coaches that might be a little more in line with something in the assistant, or even if it's just some sort of advisor job. But like, Jason Crook's got to be up there. There's not a lot in junior lacrosse this guy hasn't done.
You know what? It's a great point, and I wish the sport, and I think you see this in a lot of sports. I know in the NHL they do this all, in the NFL is for that matter. They recycle through the same guys all the time, right?
Yeah.
And guys that are in junior, I don't think they get the types of looks that they even close to deserve. And he's definitely a guy, if I was an owner of a team, that I would look at. I just don't think it's within the realm of how these guys operate. But hey, if it was up to me, he'd be on my short list. But hey, I'm not making those decisions. So, unfortunately, but I think those types of guys deserve every opportunity. The reality is, though, is that they're just not given them. But like you were also saying on the topic of the Kings, I watched those games too this past weekend because there wasn't anything else to watch. So I'm watching those games against the Rebels, and I was thinking to myself, these guys definitely do have some real gamers, like you said. And Coops, that guy, there's one game he had like 7 assists. I saw one play where he cut through the middle and there was a guy on his shoulder and he one-handed a pass to the crease. Ryan McDonald, the sniper, Jackson Lenz. They've got some top-end offense, and I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said they might have to shore up goaltending and maybe a few things defensively, but they are a team, I think, that can cause some havoc as we move into that meat of the schedule. So, Cody, as we both know, people tend to love power rankings. It creates buzz, and who doesn't want that around their sport and their league? So, with that said, give me your top 5 as we sit here on May 22nd.
All right. Number 5, and I think this team's probably pissed away more games than you'd like to think at this point, but I'll put the Fort Saskatchewan Rebels there. I still think that they're a top 5 team. I think they've got all the aspects, but they got to figure some things out. That's very clear. Number 4, I'll go with the Red Deer Rampage. I know their record doesn't really prove my point, But we know, and you can look at that roster and you can tell that that's still a team that was giving everyone fits last year. And they returned a lot of guys. They got a lot of good players, and they are not going to be an easy out for anyone. Number 3, I still want to see more from this team. I know they'll get some guys back. I know they'll eventually have to start taking it seriously, but the Edmonton Warriors are just a really good team on paper that, has the potential to go back-to-back for a Founders. Like, I don't see why not, but you got to play up to your ability. You can't just coast all the way through and think you can flip a switch. Number 2 is, number 1, I guess, is where it gets interesting. I don't know. I kept going back and forth on this. I still think I'm going to put the Shamrocks at number 1. I still think that they just have a few intangibles that the Silvertips don't, and that's why I've got Rocky View at number 2. Listen, I think the world of Caden McDonough. I think this kid's a hell of a goaltender. We've talked about the Central, and these guys are just breeding goaltenders left, right, and center. But the Shamrocks bringing back Pilsner for another go. They've got the offensive weapons. I don't know how anyone's going to slow down the Shamrocks. The one thing that every single team has, and we've seen it plenty of time and time again, is that the Larry Bishop isn't playoffs. It's a single game elimination. It's like March Madness. It's a crapshoot, right? Like, If you told me that this was a 7-game series through and through, I would tell you today you could bet the farm on the Shamrocks. Because I don't think anyone beats them in a 7-game series. The thing is, Tier 1's not a 7-game series. So it just makes it that much crazier. And that's why I say, like, if at the end of the year you see the Warriors of the Rebels as the team coming out of the Rocky Mountain Lacrosse League, you'd be like, yeah, probably. It's a 1-game series. Got hot at the right time. I think you could say that about a lot of teams.
Yeah, no, I think that's another great point. I mean, you could see a game. I mean, if Red Deer work their way in, you could see a game where Carson Wells stops 65-68 and they win 5-3 or something like that. Like in a 1-game elimination, anything's possible. So I think that's what makes it intriguing, and then at the same time, for a lot of teams, it makes it frustrating. But that's just the reality of the format, and I think teams got to do what they can do to set themselves up as best as they can, and try to get through their division as quick as they can, so they're as healthy and rested as possible, and go from there.
Well, you mentioned Carson Wells, and that's a really interesting point, because I was talking to a guy who's pretty high up in BC who said, like, hey, watching this guy at the Founders, like, why is he not playing Junior A? Like he was the best player in the tournament far and away. I know he was a pickup for the Warriors because they had injury issues, but, like, it's crazy to think about someone who, an NLL player was saying looked like the best Junior B player in Canada is on a middle-of-the-pack Tier 1 team right now. And so that's just, it's insane to think about that from a Rocky Mountain Lacrosse League perspective. And I think it does. It sets it up. I've said it again. This isn't a shot at Junior A. I just think that the Tier 1 excitement and drama is second to none. I wish they did 7-game series. Junior A does that right. But Tier 1 for, who can actually win this league this year is an absolute meat grinder.
Yeah, and it makes going down the stretch. That's what I mean. You see it on just in the final scores throughout the league. There's tons of 11-8 and 9-8 and 9-7 games, right? And it's outstanding to see the type of threats that you can go through in every division and point out. And that's another thing that I know we talked about with what you just touched on with the formats, is that teams these teams deserve the opportunity to play at least a best of 5 in their playoff rounds. If you want to do a Memorial Cup type format, I can sort of understand that and get with that. But these divisional playoffs need to be at least a best of 5 and not be played over 48 hours or whatever it ends up being for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, and I think that's what really, it was the kick in the pants last year, right? We watched the Warriors and Rebels duke it out in an unbelievable best-of-3 series, and it was done in 48 hours. You're like, well, that was crazy, but, That's it, right? Like stretch out a 7-game series. I hate the long regular season. I don't care. These guys don't need to play 20 games of regular season lacrosse. It gets so boring playing a 3-3 when you're traveling across multiple provinces. No one cares about that. And the gates show it. I think you can ask team managers, like, hey, you know what? They want more revenue. They want more people in the stands. Well, then play more meaningful games. Don't just be like, okay, we'll just do a best of 3 in playoffs. Like play more meaningful games, and you'll see those gate revenues increase. You'll see people more intrigued. You'll see more media coverage. Like it's little things like that leagues could do. And again, we don't need to just get on the Cody just rants about Lacrosse Canada and lacrosse in certain areas trend. But come on, I want to see some more meaningful games.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest change that needs to be made. I know I've talked to people in the league about it, and some of them say, well, we want to play everybody during the regular season, and I just don't see how that's relevant. I don't see how that matters. I mean, if you're on the path to winning, you're going to meet up with whoever you need to meet up when it really matters. And,
exactly.
Yeah, and I just don't... It sucked. I mean, that Warriors Rebels series stands out in my mind because I remember that third game. It was like 4:00 on a Sunday or something like that, and you're going to the rink, and I'm watching guys warm up, and half of them can't move, and that you could see it in the Rebels' body language. Like after the first period, they just absolutely sunk. Like they hit a physical and mental wall, and it was done. And the score, it ended up like 9-6 or whatever, but you just could tell where the result was headed, and you just should never have that in a playoff series, in my mind anyway. I feel like you should give these teams and these players the best opportunity to compete and give the fans a series to actually be able to look forward to, as opposed to, well, we're going to the game Friday night and Saturday night, and then it could be over, and if we're lucky, we'll get a game Sunday, and then it's over, and we're going to go home, and, so I hope that's something that can change and will change in the near future, but all we can do is talk about it and voice our opinions, Cody, and until it changes, it remains the reality.
Hey, we'll still enjoy it as is, but I just, we know that there's ways to make it better. But, hey, no, it's always a pleasure talking Junior Beast. It's been fun to follow. It's been awesome to see what you, Keenan, Eric, and everyone there at Curlax TV is still doing. And I think it makes it that much more fun when, you can watch every single game for free. It's accessible. It's easy. I can throw it on the TV the morning after at work, and, I can catch up on all of it. Super simple. I still love it, and it's awesome to see that platform continue to grow, and then seeing the Junior Beast podcast keep going. I love seeing that. So it's been awesome and super easy for me to follow along from another province over. I think that's the best, and there's so many, parents that tell me, like, oh, we love what they're doing in Alberta, like, wish that was happening here and stuff like that, and having people who are actually investing in it, that's awesome for the game of lacrosse.
And you know what, Cody, I'd be remiss without saying that you were the guy that really took the lead with that and basically took it from the ground up and got teams on board and interested, and without you being here, it probably, who knows when and if it ever would have happened. So I want to thank you for taking that initiative and getting all these guys and all these teams and all these players, invested in the product. And I think it's really helped drive interest and drive a lot of what you see, in terms of coverage around the league. And I know the players and the coaches appreciate it, and as do I. And I know I've told you this many times before, but lacrosse is starved for that sort of spotlight, and you played a big role in that. So I have nothing but good things to say about you for that. I can tell you that.
Hey, well, I appreciate the kind words. I really do.
So before I let you go, Cody, in one or two sentences, give the listeners a true dark horse that you could see, because we just talked about anything can happen at the Larry Bishop and in the provincial format. So give me one team and maybe a sentence or two as to why they could be the team headed to the Founders Cup, to the surprise of everybody.
Well, I guess it all depends on what your definition of dark horse is, because I've really got two, and we kind of talked about them because I really think the Central is the strongest, and I think that a goaltender like Carson Wells, it's kind of like the NHL playoffs. Who I'm picking to win series is who's got the best goaltending, and I don't think that there's a single goaltender better than Carson Wells right now in Tier 1 lacrosse. And then if we're talking Larry Bishop, underdogs, I think it's got to be Regina. I think that they're a team that they can get there. They got a lot of experience last year. They got a bitter taste in their mouths from losing to Winnipeg, who, the Blizz were a heck of a team, right? And Winnipeg and Regina was there step for step with them all season long. So I think those two teams could make noise come Larry Bishop time.
I think I think I agree with both of those. One team I'll throw out there for everybody, and it's for the sole reason that on any given day this team could pop 15, is the Calgary Chill. Just watch out. If they make the playoffs, because that division is very tough, but if they make it and they've figured a few things out defensively, man, I would not want to play that team. I just think that they're so dangerous out the front gate. And they're a team that I think kind of flies under the radar because their win-loss percentage hasn't been great these last couple of years. But I think they're a sleeping giant, and watch out for that team moving forward. Cody, it's been far too long. I hope we get to connect here in the arena sometime soon here. But until next time, thanks so much for joining us, and wish you all the best out in Saskatoon.
Hey, I'll be up there next month watching some games in person. So, hey, I appreciate it, though, Mo. Take care.
That was the voice of the Saskatchewan Rush, Cody Janzen, popping in to give us his early season thoughts, what he maybe foresees down the road on the way to the Founders, and his quarter pole power rankings. Now let's shift our focus to the Queen City, where the only action of the weekend took place and saw the Rebels traveling in for a 3-game set against the Kings. So traditionally, the May-long weekend in the RMLL is a quiet one, and the only action that was seen was the Rebels making their way east into Regina to take on the Queen City Kings for a mini 3-game series. And I'm going to talk about this more on a macro level instead of breaking each individual game down. I didn't see any full game of this set, but I did see large chunks of the first 2 games, especially the second game that was played on Sunday night. I watched most of that game and didn't really watch much of the third and final game. It was pretty early in the day. But what I took away from these games were, it's almost impossible not to be incredibly impressed with the McDonald, Lenz, Coops trio. I mean, McDonald has such quick hands around the net, and I hadn't really seen or watched him play before. I guess I probably would have seen him in the Founders last year, but this is the first time that I was sort of watching for him. And man, that kid can play. I put him right up there in the top 3 to 5 players in the league. I think he's that good. He's dangerous all over the floor, and anytime he gets an opportunity, you're thinking that he's burying it. So I came away pretty impressed from that standpoint. For the Kings, I think their offense is just as good as I sort of thought it was. Coops is a big man, but man, he's got soft hands, feeds really well. I think he had 7 assists in the first game. It was one of the 3 that he had 7 assists. He had a boatload of assists over the weekend. Sees the floor well. Another guy with soft hands. And Lenz is just is a pure sniper. So I came away, pretty impressed with the Kings offensively. Now, I think they have questions in net, and there were some back-breaking goals that I saw that just should never go in. We'll see how that progresses throughout the season. Now, from a Rebels point of view, I think they stayed true to form. There were many times that they could have folded in those games. They didn't. They bounced back. And I think they're the master of the broken play. Like, the ball goes loose in the corner, and they find ways to come up with it and get out in front of the net and score. They capitalize on other teams' mistakes a lot. And they deserve credit for that. I thought Jackson Baker looked pretty good this weekend. Showed a good first step. I thought he led in a lot of ways. Was a catalyst for their offense. And then Calix Simonson, man, like, what a game. 4 goals in the win. They grabbed that final game, a win they really needed. They win 12-11, and Calix pots 4 goals. Calix, if you're listening, good job, buddy. I was happy to see that. I think that the Rebels, I kind of at times looked a little bit overwhelmed with some of the top end guys from the Kings. But you know what? They were in every game. It was really tight, and they found ways to hang around. And on the road, that's not easy to do. And it shows the character of a team winning that final game after what was probably a long weekend for those guys, having to play 3 games. Both teams obviously having to play 3 games in a short amount of time. But it's always tougher going on a bus and playing in an arena you've never played in before and staying in a hotel. So I think the Rebels can probably come away with a lot of positives out of the weekend, especially after grabbing that last game. So overall, I thought it was entertaining to watch. I thought those are 2 teams that I think will be playoff teams. I think they're 2 teams that could surprise people come the end of the season. And I think that they're 2 teams going in the right direction. So it was nice to have some Junior B lacrosse out there for people over the weekend. And it was a tightly contested series, and good job to both teams. Alright, so that is going to wrap up the pod. Quick little rundown here before we punch out. On Crowlax TV this weekend, Saturday, May 25th, you've got the Calgary Mountaineers paying a visit to Bill Hunter to take on the defending champion Edmonton Warriors. You've also got Mountain View traveling to Stupa Park to take on the undefeated Shamrocks in what should be a big game between 2 teams with very good records. And you've got on Saturday evening the Queen City Kings, who we just talked about, traveling to St. Albert to start off a little weekend road trip up north. And then on Sunday, May 26th, you've got the Junior Mountaineers concluding their weekend road trip in St. Albert against the Crude. You've got the Queen City Kings completing the back half of their road trip in Ardrossan to take on the Outlaws. And you've got the Red Deer Rampage invading Bill Hunter Arena to take on the Edmonton Warriors on Sunday evening. As always, you can hit me up on Instagram, m.joma, and on X, mj_9. Any thoughts, conversation that you want to have, insight, always welcome. Until next time, take care of yourselves and enjoy the games, everybody.